Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Terrible news. This morning, a judge on the Federal Court of Canada ruled that Justin Trudeau's airport COVID jails are legal. Rebel News went to court challenging that law under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We hired two of the best constitutional lawyers in Canada. I spoke with the lawyers this morning. I have instructed them to appeal this ruling to the Federal Court of Appeal. Trudeau threw the unlimited resources of the Justice Department against us. It's really a David and Goliath battle. I hope you'll help us cover the cost of our fight. Please go to nocovidjails.com. If you want to help, by the way, you'll actually get a charitable tax receipt for that from the Democracy Fund, so you can deduct it from your taxes. Please help if you can. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened, and then I'll tell you why I think we have a chance on appeal. The judge, Chief Justice Paul Crampton, ruled that jailing healthy people, law-abiding people, citizens who have done nothing wrong, jailing them for up to 3 days and billing them thousands of dollars for the cost of it, is just a minor inconvenience, not an important violation of our liberties. I'm guessing he himself hasn't had to stay in one. And the fact that the quarantine makes no sense from a health point of view. It's no safer to send someone to a hotel for 3 days where they will have contact with many people as opposed to sending them straight home by themselves. Well, the judge didn't mind. He actually wrote that it's Canadians' duty to suffer through such indignities to save lives, even though the government provided no evidence that these costly schemes have saved lives. In fact, there was evidence that the COVID jails are dangerous, whether it's COVID outbreaks at these COVID hotel jails or cases of alleged rape there that the judge acknowledged. Justin Trudeau and the rest of the ruling class themselves don't have to follow these rules. The president of the CBC, for example, flies back and forth to Canada from her home in New York City every week. She doesn't quarantine anywhere, certainly not in an airport hotel. Trudeau himself just got back from a week of boozy parties in Europe, violating every quarantine rule. Mask rules, social distancing rules. And when he came back to Canada, he reportedly spent a few hours in one of these COVID airport hotels and then just left. So yeah, rules are for the little people. We sued the government because we had sent our then reporter, Kian Bexte, to report in Florida, and he had to come back to Canada through one of these COVID jails in Calgary. When he was in the hotel, he came into contact with no less than 14 people, as opposed to just taking his own car home from the airport. It's ridiculous. Our lawyers did an excellent job. Sarah Miller and Robert Hawkes ran circles around the government's lawyers. In cross-examination, they were able to get some incredible admissions from the government's witnesses, and they really grilled the health bureaucrats the government sent out to defend the law. But in the end, Crampton sided with the establishment and against the people. I've read the ruling. In my opinion, it's a political document designed to make this problem go away. And fair enough, if the entire media and entire political establishment and the airline industry itself seem fine with all this and the other awful parts of the lockdown, so why would a top judge go out on a limb by himself and what? Become a pariah at all the Ottawa cocktail parties? Our lawyers were in court alongside lawyers from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and there were a handful of other individuals who sued on their own. All of our cases were bundled together and heard at once. But I note there wasn't a single lawyer in court from a liberal civil liberties group. There were no tourism or travel or business groups, no chambers of commerce there, no political group, no opposition political party, nobody. Nobody who we ought to rely on in society to protect us from authoritarian measures. I think the government got the message loud and clear. No one important cares about this. Well, I care about it, and I hope you care about it too. So we're going to appeal. Here's what Justice Crampton said. Like times of war and other crises, pandemics call for sacrifices to save lives and avoid broad-based suffering. If some are unwilling to make such sacrifices and engage in behavior that poses a demonstrated risk to the health and safety of others, the principles of fundamental justice will not prevent the state from performing its essential function of protecting its citizens from that risk. Exactly what sacrifices has anyone from the ruling class made? A judge or Trudeau himself? Trudeau, the judges, they haven't lost a day's pay. In fact, for Trudeau, his workload has been a lot lighter than usual, hasn't it? I mean, the government has had a nice long staycation. The entire ruling class has had the time of their lives. Imagine comparing what's going on to a war. The only comparison I see is to war profiteers, people who love the new rules and are doing just fine by them. And what health and safety benefits exactly did the judge mean? I read the ruling. There's no evidence that these COVID jails have stopped anyone from getting sick. The government doesn't even try to collect any such data. But we know that there have been outbreaks at these very same COVID jails. Outbreaks of the virus there, of course there are. What's so weird is, if you land in Canada and you have the coronavirus, you are not sent to one of these hotels. Only healthy people are sent to these quarantine hotels. I'm serious. The law is a joke and this government is a joke. And this judge stood by him. Well, we're appealing. Section 7 of our Charter of Rights guarantees life, liberty, and the security of the person. I think a court of appeal could be persuaded that detaining our reporter for no provable benefit deprives him of his liberty and isn't in accordance with the principles of justice. It's arbitrary. It's overly broad. Section 9 of the Charter guarantees that Canadians can't be arbitrarily detained. You're healthy, you've done nothing wrong. Why should the government be able to scoop you up for 3 days? And then there's the law itself, the Quarantine Act. It delegates certain powers, but Trudeau's cabinet, in issuing these orders just to detain people, they've far exceeded those powers. It's just not in there in the law to let them do what they're doing. You can read the whole ruling for yourself at our website, nocovidjails.com. It's over 130 pages long. Frankly, it's a very frustrating read. But you'll see the importance of our participation. You know, if you read the ruling, Rebel News and our arguments and our facts are mentioned more than 50 times in the ruling by the judge. If we hadn't been there, our ideas and arguments would not have been put to court. Some of them were made by other lawyers, to be sure. But we had unique points that we made, and I think our lawyers were also the most effective at grilling the government's own witnesses. There were other excellent lawyers in the room, but I think ours were the best and made the most interesting points. So if you think we have to continue the fight to appeal, please help us. I've already told the lawyers to start working on the appeal. We've spent about $100,000 on this so far, and I know that's a huge amount of money, but there was so much cross-examination, all the government experts. It took a lot of time. I'm sure an appeal will probably come close to $50,000 more. This is a civil liberties case, though, so you'll get a charitable tax credit for anything you can chip in at nocovidjails.com. So that's a plus. Thanks for your help. We have to do this because everyone else in society who's supposed to be doing this, they're not doing this. We have to fight for freedom. For more details, go to nocovidjails.com. We lost in the federal court today. A judge said these COVID jails at airports are legal. I disagree, so we're going to the Federal Court of Appeal. To read today's ruling and to help us fund our appeal, go to nocovidjails.com.